Hello everyone and welcome back to another beginner Blender tutorial. Today I'm going to be going over the basics of painting in Blender, what you can do with it, and how you can use it in your everyday projects. So I'm going to go ahead and get straight into it by pressing Shift and then A on the keyboard, hovering over Mesh, and I'll left click on Cube. Now what I'm going to do is press Shift A again, and I can make another cube or I can choose a new object. So I'll just go ahead and I'll choose a cone. Now, if I bring this object out by pressing G and then X, you notice very simply when I select one of these objects and then press G to move them, they move individually. But what if I wanted to have my cone move with my cube whenever I move my cube? Well, that would actually be very simple to do. So all I need to do is left click my cone first and then left click my cube second. Then I'll press Ctrl P and I'll press Set Parent to Object. Now when I move my cube by pressing G or rotate or scale, you'll notice my cone does the same alongside my cube. The important thing to keep in mind with parents is if I now select the cone and then press G, you'll notice that the cube will not move along with it. But if I move it closer to the cube, select the cube and then move the cube again, you'll notice that it's now moving in that new position. If I press Shift A again, and this time I'll select cylinder. Then I'll press G and then X to move it out. And now I'm going to parent my cube to my cylinder. I'll just press Ctrl P and then set parent to object. Then when I move my cylinder, all three of these objects move. Then when I move my cube, only my cube and my cone. Then when I move my cone, only my cone. So hopefully you get a general idea of how this actually works. The important thing to keep in mind when creating parents is that you want to select the object you're parenting to last. This is called the active object. So the active object will always be highlighted in yellow, whereas the other objects which are selected will be highlighted in orange. So if I was to parent these two objects again, that cube would parent to this cylinder. Whereas if I now clear this parent by selecting the cube first and then cylinder second, then pressing Alt and then P, and then press clear parent. And now I select my cylinder, then shift click my cube and press Ctrl P and set parent to object. Now the cylinder is parented to the cube. So now when I move the cylinder, the cube doesn't come with it, but when I move the cube, the cylinder comes with it. So that was quite a long explanation, but hopefully that all makes sense to you now. Now I'm just going to left click and drag to box select all these objects, and I'll just press X and delete them all. And now I'm going to quickly show you some problems you might encounter. So I'll press Shift A and I'll select the icosphere, Shift A and then a cube. Again, these can be any objects. I'm just picking random ones to show you that it does work with literally anything. And I'll press left click this object and then shift left click the icosphere, Control P, object. Now, sometimes, usually when working with armatures, which are the bones of a character which we use to move our characters in animations or just for posing, when we want to clear our parent by pressing Alt P and we click this, sometimes, now it won't happen here, this object will actually move somewhere far away and we won't want that. So in the cases in which that happens, all we need to do is press Alt P and then click clear and keep transformation. And when you press clear and keep transformation, it means no matter what, when you clear your parent, this cube will stay exactly where it is and it won't move or scale off somewhere. Unfortunately, I couldn't really come up with a way to show you how this problem works in action, but hopefully that makes sense to you. Now I'm going to select my icosphere, and I'll press G and X, G and Z, and I'll get it next to my character's hand here. Usually I would do this with some sort of tool, but just for the sake of example, I'll bind this icosphere to a certain joint on my character's armature. So when I left click my character's armature, which are these bones, and keep in mind that bones can sometimes appear as this as well. They're the exact same. I just usually display mine as the stick, which I change here. Now if I press tab and enter pose mode, this isn't an armature tutorial, but I'll show you essentially how they work. I can select my bone here and I can press R and then choose an axis, and you'll notice that my mesh moves accordingly. Now what if I wanted this icosphere here to follow one of my bones here? Well, all we need to do is left click my icosphere first, and then I'm going to shift left click the armature, and that will become our active object. Now I could press Ctrl P and select object, and now whenever I press G and then Z, my icosphere will move with my armature, but that's not going to bind it to an individual bone. So if I now press Alt P and press clear parent, and I'll do the same thing again. I'll select the icosphere and then the armature. Now what I'm going to do is change from object mode here into pose mode. And now what I'm going to do is, first of all, make sure none of my bones here are highlighted in blue, just in case it binds to the wrong bone. Then all I'm going to do is left click my bone of choice. So I will bind it to this hand bone here, which essentially controls the movement of the hand. And now what I'm going to do is press Ctrl P, and rather than object, I'm going to select bone relative. Now when I rotate my bone, my icosphere will come along with it. When I scale my bone, it will also change accordingly. So now I'll press Tab to go back into object mode. If you don't have that certain menu, then just come to this drop down here and select object mode. And I can also move my icosphere individually again. Maybe move it down and scale it. And it's almost like my character is holding some sort of strange shaped ball. Now when I select my character on its own without the icosphere, and then rotate my hand again, my icosphere will come along with it. This can be very handy, especially for animation and posing characters. And for most people, that will be about everything you need to know about parenting. So hopefully that all makes sense. One last thing I'm going to mention is, if this armature is the parent for this icosphere, then we refer to this icosphere as a child. So that is some terminology to keep in mind when you're watching perhaps other YouTubers or myself. And that's going to bring us to the end of this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope you all found it useful. If you do want to see more Blender tutorials like this, make sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I release my next video. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.